Know China to do better business. Save time and money with expert insights on China trade and investment.
Welcome to Trade with China. Welcome to our channel, Trade with China. Today, we're undertaking a really critical deep dive. We're looking at a set of sources that, well, they act as a major policy signal. Specifically, 8 consecutive high-level articles. These were published in China's official media right over the National Day period, so September 30th to October 2nd.
That's right, and these aren't, your typical news reports.
No, definitely not.
Today we are going to summarize an important signal. These Chinese official website published articles, one per day, from September 30th to October 7th on people.cn. And timing is key here. They came out right after a significant Politburo meeting.
Okay.
A meeting focused on the proposal for the upcoming 15th five-year plan. So the purpose seems pretty clear. Set the ideological stage, build that public consensus for what's next. They represent the attitude for future economic development.
Right, laying the groundwork. And the authorship itself, that's the first big clue, isn't it? Signed Zhang Kai-wen.
For our listeners maybe not familiar with this kind of political shorthand, why is that name immediately so important?
Well, when you see Zhang Kai-wen, you should immediately think Central Financial and Economic Affairs Commission. That's Zhang Kai-wen.
Hold up.
Precisely. It's widely understood to sound like it. So this isn't just some commentary piece. It signals this comes directly from the highest planning level. It's their way of broadcasting the approved, definitive attitude on the economy's future path.
Without a formal, big announcement.
Right. More subtle, but just as significant.
Okay, so let's unpack this signal then. If the goal is certainty in, a pretty uncertain world right now, what's the core message across all 8 of these articles?
The main thrust, the overarching mission, boils down to 3 things. Stabilizing expectations, strengthening confidence, and promoting development.
Stabilize, strengthen, promote.
Yeah. It's a very targeted message, really. Trying to counter some of the negative noise, both inside China and internationally. They're laying out what they see as the kind of indisputable logic for China's long-term success.
Okay, let's dig into that logic. Starting with how they frame the present situation. Section 1. How China views its current economic status. Article 1 looks outwards, comparing China globally.
It draws a pretty stark contrast. The argument is essentially that China has maintained a stable development road in sharp contrast to other major world economies.
Pointing to things like inflation or instability elsewhere.
Exactly. Compared to others maybe struggling with inflation, geopolitical issues, or just a slower recovery, the message is our stability is a key strength right now.
But then Article 3 looks inwards, vertically, comparing China now to its own past high-growth periods. That picture has to be more complex, right? They acknowledge the slowdown.
Oh, absolutely. They don't shy away from the fact that growth isn't what it used to be, those double-digit peaks.
Yeah.
And they tackle what they call the singing the blues commentary head-on.
The pessimism.
Right, the domestic and international pessimism about the slowdown. And crucially, the official line uses dialectics.
Okay, let's try and translate that thought. Roughly, varying forms, but an improving trend. Something like that.
That's a good way to put it. Different shapes, different forms, but the overall trend is positive, improving.
But isn't just calling slower growth differentiation a bit of, semantic framing? What concrete evidence do they offer that this pain, this variation, is actually leading somewhere better?
That's really the core tension they're managing. They openly admit to the temperature difference.
Oh yeah, I saw that phrase.
Between the big macro numbers like GDP and what, small businesses or individuals are actually feeling on the ground.
Okay.
And they use this differentiation itself as evidence. They highlight the economic split as proof of a necessary healthy structural shift. Not a collapse, but a transition.
And they give specific examples of this split, which I thought were quite striking.
They do. They contrast growth areas with shrinking ones very clearly, like wages in AI-related industries, growing twice as fast as other sectors, they say.
Wow, okay.
Which points to a huge focus of capital and talent on these future tech areas. But then conversely, industries tied to the, let's call it the old economy, especially real estate-related sectors, those are seeing job cuts and lower salaries.
So the signal is, stop looking just at the headline growth number. Look where the money and the policy focus are actually moving. This differentiation isn't failure, it's deliberate transition.
Precisely. The core message is, look, this shift might be tough for some older sectors, but it's necessary. China's moving away from reliance on property, heavy industry, towards a new economy driven by innovation, by high tech.
And they reassure on risks.
Yes, they emphasize risks are controllable, livelihoods are protected, and that innovation push, that remains constant, unwavering.
Okay, that covers the now. So if the present is about transition, how do they guarantee the future? Let's get into section 2. The core logic and certainty of future development. Articles 2, 4, and 5 seem key here.
Right. 2 and 5 really lay the foundation. They talk about fundamental certainties that should give confidence, especially to foreign capital. They list a few factors, but 2 really stand out as the strategic pillars for long-term stability.
Okay, what are those 2 main pillars, and what do they mean practically for businesses listening?
First one is political and policy stability. This is huge for international players. The argument is the system ensures stable, long-term policy direction. It's not subject to, say, election cycles every few years or sudden shifts based on public opinion swings.
So predictability.
Yes, it provides that fundamental guarantee. If the next 5-year plan targets an area, you can expect consistent policy support for years. That's the message.
Okay, that's one. And the second pillar?
The second is market size and resilience. This is about China's internal strength. You've got this huge domestic market, a massive consumer base, combined with that intense focus on innovation.
A powerful engine.
Exactly. Creates a powerful sort of self-sustaining engine. This ensures strong development resilience, renjiangzu. So even if global trade gets rocky, that massive internal economy can keep things moving.
Resilience. That connects nicely to Article 4, which tackles foreign investment head-on, right? It pushes back against the idea that the golden stage for foreign investment is over.
It does, and that naturally leads to the critical question for you, for our listeners. Okay, if the era of just easy, fast, across-the-board growth is maybe fading, where are the new opportunities?
Where should people be looking?
The articles spell it out. They identify 6 major areas, and these are almost certainly going to be central to the 15th 5-year plan. So these are the immediate priorities for policy support for capital.
We definitely need to list these. If you're doing business with China or thinking about it, aligning with one of these seems pretty crucial.
Absolutely key. So the 6 are: 1, industrial transformation and upgrading, moving up the value chain, high-end manufacturing.
Right.
2, tech innovation and the talent dividend, using that large pool of educated, young, technical talent.
Good.
3, consumption capacity expansion and upgrading, moving beyond basic needs to quality goods, services, experiences.
Got it.
4, traditional and new infrastructure construction. So not just roads and rail, but 5G, data centers, AI infrastructure, smart grids, the new stuff.
Digital backbone.
Exactly. 5, new urbanization and city renewal, making existing cities smarter, greener, more livable, rather than just building endlessly outwards.
Here's the last one.
6, guaranteeing and improving people's livelihoods. So investment in public services, healthcare, elder care, education, social infrastructure.
That shift, especially from, say, heavy industry focus to new infrastructure and consumption upgrading, that's a very clear directional signal international partners really need to grasp.
It implies a huge shift in where the capital is going to flow. If your business was tied mainly to, basic materials or the old real estate model, you need to think about pivoting. High-tech components, green energy, advanced consumer goods. These 6 areas are where that political certainty meets the economic opportunity now.
Okay, let's move to the final theme then. How China sees itself and wants to be seen on the world stage. Articles 6, 7, and 8 cover this. Article 6 frames China as a model for inclusive development. What does that mean?
Well, this is China defining its own development path internally. They're highlighting achievements like poverty alleviation, pushing regional coordination, green development. The subtext is, our development model offers a unique path, a kind of socialist fairness different from traditional Western models.
Presenting an alternative. And Article 7, that focuses on global engagement, openness, and win-win. What are the specific commitments there that global partners should note?
They lay out 4 clear points to show they aren't pulling back from the world economy. First, upholding economic globalization, pushing back against decoupling. Second, maintaining stable global supply chains. That's a direct nod to manufacturers.
Important reassurance.
Third, promoting high-quality belt and road cooperation, framing it as a global public good. And fourth, crucially, steadfastly expanding high-level opening up. The message is, we're still engaged, aiming for higher quality engagement.
Okay, but then Article 8 gets into direct rebuttals, doesn't it? Tackling those 2 big Western critiques we hear all the time. overcapacity, and state-driven overseas control. How do they argue against these?
Yeah, this is probably the most sensitive part of the whole series, so the arguments are detailed. On overcapacity, you hear this a lot with EV solar panels.
What?
The official response is basically two-pronged. First, they say Chinese companies are competitive because of intense domestic market competition, not because of some widespread structural excess capacity problem funded by the state.
Okay, market forces at home.
And second, regarding those trade surpluses that cause friction,
Yes.
they attribute them to different economic cycles globally, shifts in supply and demand, essentially arguing they are efficiently meeting foreign demand, and it's more cyclical and market-driven, not some structural state policy to flood markets. It's a key distinction they're trying to make.
A different interpretation of the data. And the second critique, state-driven overseas control, especially involving state-owned enterprises, the SOEs.
They push back firmly here, too. They detail how overseas investments usually happen typically through joint ventures, cooperation, not unilateral takeovers.
Partnership models.
Yes. And they stress adherence to local laws, localization requirements, hiring locals, integrating into the local community. The stated goal is mutual development, which they argue directly negates the idea of external control. And, if you zoom out, connect this to the bigger picture. These rebuttals are part of asserting that China's way shouldn't be judged by old, zero-sum, great power competition frameworks. It's asserting the unique logic of Chinese modernization.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. For you, our listener, focused on trade or investment with China, what is the real actionable takeaway from this major policy signal across these 8 articles?
I think the absolute key implication is directional clarity. Yes, they acknowledge the transition pains, that differentiation between sectors like real estate and AI we talked about, but the policy focus, it's fixed firmly on the future economy.
The direction is set.
Unequivocally.
Yeah.
The past is transitioning, sure, but the destination innovation-led, high-quality growth that's been confirmed right from the top.
Which means, for businesses, pivoting your strategy isn't just advisable, it's pretty much essential now. You need to align your focus, your capital, with those 6 key opportunity areas we listed: tech, consumption upgrades, new infrastructure.
Exactly. Those sectors are where you'll find that explicit political and policy stability certainty backing them.
And for international partners more broadly.
The message confirms, look, despite geopolitical tensions, there's a continued commitment to a high-level opening up, to being part of global supply chains. The door's open, but maybe the doorway leads to different rooms, now rooms aligned with high-quality development, not necessarily the old, heavy industry ones.
Okay, let's wrap up with the final thought then. Given this high-level backing, these 8 articles, how much do these institutional certainties, the political stability, the huge market resilience, how much do they actually outweigh those real short-term differentiation pains for an investor looking at long-term gains in these new economy sectors? Something to consider. This deep dive has brought you practical knowledge to navigate business, investment, culture, economic trends, and communication tips in trades with China. Your comments really encourage us to realize our video value and update more useful information. Please press like, subscribe now for actionable insights and win-win solutions. Not to miss the possibility to understand and make money in trades with China.